Hi, and welcome to our presentation on student staff perspectives on the Global Commons at Kyoto University. My name is Matthew Claflin.
And I'm Betsy Lavolette. Let's get started.
Starting with the overview, we'll talk about types and typologies of language learning spaces. Then we will give an introduction to Kyoto Sangyo University's Global Commons and some student staff perspectives on the Global Commons. And then finally, I will talk about Mynard's Typology from 2019 and how it can be expanded to include other types of language learning spaces. So starting with types of language learning spaces, I want to introduce US-style language centers. In the US, a language center is a physical or virtual space that supports foreign and or second language learning and or teaching within a larger educational institution. I've highlighted the word teaching here because I think that is one of the major differences from language learning spaces in Japan, that US-style language centers support language teaching as well as learning. By this definition, though, both SALCs and US-style language centers are types of language centers. On the other hand, a SelfAccess language center has been defined by Benson as any purpose-designed facility in which learning resources are made directly available to learners. Self-access learning is normally a part of self-access centers, and that has been defined by Gardner and Miller as an approach to encouraging learner autonomy. And crucially, learner autonomy is a defining focus of SALCs. This is a Venn diagram that we showed last year when we were talking about the Global Commons here at JASAL in 2019. And this shows where SALCs and US-style language centers overlap and how they differ. The main differences between the two are that SALCs have this focus on learner autonomy, whereas language centers usually offer professional development for language teachers. Another way of thinking about the differences among language learning spaces is Mynard's typology of SALCs in Japan. And I'd like to concentrate here on type 3, which is an administrative center, because we found that it basically describes the Global Commons. The features of an administrative center include a dedicated facility, which is well located and features in public relations materials. It provides facilities, space, and resources. And it lacks several things, including a mission that's promoting learner autonomy, dedicated staff to support learners and conduct research, and opportunities for community-based learning and language use. In our 2019 presentation here at JASAL, we talked about from the full-time staff perspective how it is lacking these 2 points. And this time we want to talk about from the student perspective about the opportunities for community-based learning and language use.
So let's have a look at Kyoto Sangyo University's Global Commons. First of all, the concept. This is a rough translation. To support those who wish to spread their wings and experience the world in an environment that reflects historical and international Kyoto. The Commons itself is actually quite a large facility, and I'm going to basically explain it in 3 different areas. First of all, in terms of management and materials. Here you can see there's an island where the dedicated staff have their office space and also where staff do the checking out of the materials, and they have also private consultations with students here. There are also booths where students can watch any of the large range of DVDs that are there in groups of 2 or 3. Secondly, there are student group spaces, including the area where student staff sit for most of the time, but also other areas students can sit in groups or by themselves. There is also a seminar space where there are regular seminars, but also students can organize the chairs and desks into individual or group study groups. Finally, there are class and seminar spaces, including 6 smaller rooms of different sizes that students can book to watch movies, practice presentations, and so on, and 1 larger classroom where there are workshops and students can use the monitors around the wall to connect to their computers or phones. So, in terms of Mynard 2019, the Global Commons is a dedicated, purpose-built facility that's well positioned and does feature in PR. It does provide facilities, spaces, and resources, and has a specialist and dedicated staff. So, it is either 1, a social supportive SALC, or 3, an administrative center. The question is which? To look at this, what we did for what we're reporting on today is we interviewed student staff. Now, there are approximately 18 student staff. We interviewed 4 volunteers and we gave them pseudonyms. We used a semi-structured interview procedure where we recorded the interviews. Students were given the choice of language, and the interviews were primarily in English, so the quotes we will show will be exactly what the students said. We asked them a range of questions, and for analysis, we took selective transcription and tried to develop themes in what they had said. There were, as I said, 4 different students, 1 male and 3 females. 2 were non-Japanese students. These are full-time students, not exchange students. And 2 Japanese students from 3rd and 4th year from a range of faculties with a range of experience in terms of years working in the Global Commons and working 1 to 2 2-hour shifts a week. In the terms of the questions themselves, we talked about student background, job duties, images of the Global Commons usage, and suggestions for the Global Commons. Looking back at the Typology by Mynard, she was talking about an administrative center. As I said, we're looking at, is it an administrative center or a social supportive SALC? And to look at that, an administrative has a dedicated facility, well-located features, provides facilities, but it lacks these points. Now, these 2, as Betsy has mentioned, we covered in our 2019 presentation, but it lacks opportunities for community-based learning, and language use is one of Mynard's points. So, using these numbers, I'm going to go through and show you some quotes from the students. First of all, 3A, it's a dedicated facility, it's well located and features in PR. So Veronica said, the Global Commons is situated in a pretty good location, and Tom said, it was for me more or less a fancy kind of building. Like in Vietnam, we don't have those kind of facilities for learning English. Hannah said that the Global Commons, it's a good atmosphere to study, even alone or not with a friend. And Keiko said the Global Commons is good for studying languages or studying Japanese history or Japanese culture in English, and also other languages. Finally, Veronica said, I think that the environment here is really, really good too. It's really easy for not just group study, but for individual study. They can do their study alone here. And the facilities, I think it's awesome. They have a cinema. I don't see that anywhere. So really, really positive images there. In terms of facility, space, and resources, also Veronica says it's only here you can find international students and books, the resources. And as Keiko said, there are lots of books and DVDs. In fact, Veronica gives more detail there, saying that they have 11 languages, if I'm not wrong, like books, DVDs, magazines. They even have the TOEIC books of different languages. And here I presume she means testing books for the different languages. In terms of opportunities for community-based learning and language use, the job duties, and here I think is an important point for our presentation. Tom said the most important one is the chat in English, I think. We have 3 shifts every day, and for each shift we have around 20 minutes of chat in English. And he talks about how they make an announcement and advertise it. Keiko said that she used to join the chats in English and actually really enjoyed them. And so for her, working there in terms of job duties, this is what she wants to help. I want to help this event for other students. Interestingly enough, Keiko, who majors in German and has studied abroad, also held sessions for German, not just English, but also for her own Hiroshima dialect. In terms of student motivations for working in the Global Commons relating to opportunities for community-based learning and language use, Veronica said that I heard that I can use English and I can help the students here. And Tom said, I think I can help them with my English skills. So there was obviously a clear feeling that there would be a community-based learning and language use experience for the staff. In terms of availability of social spaces for users to engage in community activities relating to job satisfaction, Veronica, I think, made the best comment here. She said, I like meeting friends because, to be honest, without Global Commons, I don't think I've met so many people. She makes a range of comments, but I think this last comment is the most telling one. This is like my second home. Now, opportunities for learning involvement in the running of the SALC. We asked the students, do you have an opportunity to give ideas to staff? And Veronica and many of the staff talked about how, yes, they do. The staff usually come to us and we will just talk about how we should improve the chat or some activities. At the end of every shift, we will have to submit a report in English. And do they listen to your ideas? And she says, yes, they do, because they do reply to your comments every day. So that's great. So the students feel involved in the SALC and the running of itself. However, job duties show a focus on appearances and following rules, as Tom's comment best summarizes. As he said, most of the time, it's just make sure that everyone follows the rules. No food policy, these kinds of things. No charging the phones. Then we have the cleaning. We go around the Global Commons, try to see if any place needs to be cleaned. There were a couple of surprising points. Hannah said the DVD area is so popular, in particular for couples, and as she says here, it's one of the dating spots in Sunday. And one, perhaps less surprising but disappointing point was Veronica, who looks Asian but is from Singapore and basically is a native speaker of English, says, I look Asian, so they wouldn't know that I'm a foreigner and I can speak English. So I think coming back to this typology of SALCs in Japan, we can see from the student comments that it definitely is a dedicated facility and well located. It also does definitely provide facilities and spaces and resources. However, last year we were talking about how the Global Commons does seem to have a mission promoting learning and autonomy, but it's, as you'd say in Japanese, katachi, it's for form's sake, it seems in many ways. It does have dedicated staff to support learners and conduct research. However, they are for the most part contract people and are not empowered to do what you would hope they would be able to do. So the form is there, but the reality is not. Finally, coming to opportunities for community-based learning and language use, from the student comments, it does certainly seem that we have those opportunities. But when we further interviewed students and also looked at statistics, it was very clear that the, for example, chat in English events were being grossly underutilized and were not being effectively advertised or used in different curriculum around the university. So I think we can clearly say the Global Commons is an administrative center. All right, back to Betsy.
Where I'd like to go next is to combine Mynard's typology with the ideas that we presented last year about SALC's focus on learner autonomy and US-style language centers' inclusion of professional development for language teachers. So with that in mind, I would like to show you an expanded typology. This new typology is heavily based on Mynard's typology of SALCs in Japan. With the addition of this new column, everything in blue is newly added with US-style language centers on the far right. US-style language centers share many characteristics with SALCs. One major addition of this professional development category, I've just added one item here, provides workshops, online resources, etc. in language pedagogy and innovative practices for language teachers, which I believe is mainly provided by US language centers, but not necessarily by SALCs. We have also added this idea about peer tutors, which I think is often included in social supportive SALCs, as well as administrative centers and US-style language centers. And another characteristic that is common with US-style language centers, but I believe uncommon with SALCs, is the idea of faculty, staff, and community members being invited to access the space and resources. This is also a new addition which is particularly relevant to the current COVID situation, provision of online spaces such as a video conferencing for providing services and activities remotely. I believe that socially supportive SALCs are providing this currently, as well as US-style language centers.
Thank you for watching, and we're looking forward to discussing your questions and comments.